There's something about the way a room looks when the people who should be there are missing. The chairs are empty, but the weight of their absence presses down harder than any body could. It's the kind of emptiness that doesn't hit you until you realize you've been holding your breath the entire time. I suppose that's why I didn't notice at first. Or maybe it was the shock of it all, the suddenness of the silence. The funeral had already started, the familiar faces of Graham's colleagues scattered among the seats. Yet the empty chairs by my side felt like a cruel joke. Richard and Patricia Thornton, my parents, hadn't shown up. And Marissa, my best friend of 20 years, the one who promised to stand by me no matter what. Not a word. It's strange how grief works. You expect the pain. You know it's coming. But sometimes the silence is worse than the ache. I could have dealt with tears, anger, even, but the quiet that was unbearable. I didn't look back when I took my seat at the front. I didn't want to see anyone noticing. The empty chairs were all that needed to be acknowledged. This is how I remember it. The service went on around me, the words of a stranger washing over me as I sat frozen in place. I had to force myself to breathe. I should have been in mourning, but the raw grief I had prepared myself for was tangled with something else, something colder. It wasn't just the loss of Graham. No, this was something deeper. I couldn't help but think of the faces that should have been here, the people who claimed to love me, the ones who promised they'd stand by my side through thick and thin. But they weren't here. They hadn't even called. Graham had been more than just my husband. He was the one who had always believed in us, in me. He had been everything I never thought I'd deserve. And for that, I'll never forgive the people who walked away when things got hard. My heart clenched at the thought, and the guilt. It wasn't for him anymore. It was for me. Still the best thing that ever happened to me, he had said, his voice weak but full of conviction, just before everything changed. I wasn't sure if he was talking about me or the life we built together, but the weight of it settled in my chest now. I knew what had to come next. And if they weren't going to show up, then I would. The empty chairs were no longer the biggest part of my grief. That honor was now reserved for the betrayal, for the people who couldn't even pretend to care enough to say goodbye. I wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. I remember the first time I saw Graham, really saw him. It wasn't in some dramatic moment, like you see in the movies. No slow motion. Just me, rushing out of a coffee shop after a double shift, barely awake, when I knocked into him. My latte spilled all over his jacket, and for a split second, I thought he might flip out. But instead, he laughed. It was a deep laugh that caught me off guard. He didn't yell, didn't make me feel stupid. "Well, that's one way to warm up on a cold morning," he said. That was it. I didn't expect it, but I liked it. The way he could find something to laugh about when it should have been a disaster. It felt like a breath of fresh air. We spent hours talking that day. I was surprised, but I gave him my number. It was something I never did. I wasn't the type to meet someone in a coffee shop and give them my number, especially not after such a ridiculous start. But there was something about him, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, like he wasn't just smiling because it was polite, but because he genuinely wanted to. I'm not sure why, but I told him about my life, my work in the ICU, how draining it could be, how much I wanted to do more but felt stuck. He shared his story too, how he wanted to be a firefighter since he was a kid, watching the trucks race past his window. He didn't have the most glamorous job, but he had purpose. He was doing something meaningful, just like me. It didn't take long for us to fall into step with each other. We didn't rush into anything, but it was clear from the beginning we were building something good. When he proposed 6 months later, it felt right. The ring wasn't fancy, just a simple solitaire, one that had belonged to his grandmother, but it meant everything to me. His words stuck with me. I don't have much, but everything I am is yours. That's how it was. For us, it was never about what we didn't have. It was about what we could build together. It started with the headaches. At first, Graham didn't say much about them. He'd just mention them in passing, usually with a shrug. It's probably just the stress. He'd say, or too many nights of bad sleep. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And, honestly, I didn't either. Who had time for worrying about a headache when life already felt like it was on a ticking clock? But then it got worse. One night, while I was getting ready for my shift, he called me at work. His voice sounded off, like he was slurring his words just slightly. I felt a little catch in my chest, but I tried to brush it off. "I'm coming home early," he said, like it was nothing. "I'm just not feeling great." I dropped everything. It wasn't like him to leave a shift early, not when he was always so committed to being there for his crew. When I got home, I found him sitting on the couch, his hand pressed to his forehead. His eyes were bloodshot, but he smiled when he saw me. "Hey, beautiful," he said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. We went to the doctor the next morning, and I still wasn't too worried. I thought maybe it was just something they could fix with medication or rest. But the waiting room, the tests, the looks exchanged between the doctor and nurse, it all started to feel heavier than I expected. When the doctor finally came in, I saw it in her face before she even said anything. She didn't need to speak the words, I felt it, deep in my bones. "It's a glioblastoma," she said softly. "Grade 4. The most aggressive kind of brain cancer." Those words hit me like a slap to the face. It was all too much, too fast. The whole world seemed to narrow down to that one moment, that one phrase. I could barely breathe. The doctor was talking, but I wasn't hearing her. She was explaining the options: radiation, chemotherapy, experimental treatments, but my mind was miles away. I couldn't focus on anything. All I could see was Graham, sitting next to me, his hand resting on mine, trying to reassure me with a smile that barely touched his eyes. "Don't worry," he said. "We've got this." I wasn't sure if he was trying to comfort me or himself, but I nodded. I had to believe him, didn't I? What else could I do? He was the strong one, the one who always had the right words, the right answers. I couldn't, no. I wouldn't let him down now. When I called my parents that night, they were polite, I guess. They offered their prayers, said they'd keep us in their thoughts, but it was clear they weren't really here. They didn't ask how we were doing, or if we needed anything. They didn't even ask about Graham, just about the practical stuff, the insurance, the finances, the house. The distance between us had always been there, but now it felt like an ocean. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But as the days went by, the feeling in my gut grew stronger, harder to ignore. Marissa had been coming around more often, offering help with groceries, bringing food, doing whatever she could to ease the load. It felt like a blessing at first. With Graham's condition worsening, I was stretched thin, trying to balance everything: work, treatments, and being there for him. But there was something about Marissa's behavior that felt off. It started small. She'd pick up some medication and then offer to use the card for other things. I told myself it was fine. She was helping. Right. But then, after a few days of this, I started noticing charges I hadn't approved. I didn't confront her at first. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was nothing. But then the charges kept coming: grocery stores, gas stations, small purchases, and then cash withdrawals. I couldn't ignore it any longer. One night, after Graham had fallen asleep, I went through the bank statement. The numbers jumped out at me, each one worse than the last. $500 at a department store I didn't recognize, $300 at a local diner, and then the cash over $1,000 in total withdrawals in just 2 weeks. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the transactions. The betrayal hit me in waves. It wasn't just about the money. It was the fact that Marissa had taken something from me, my trust, my security when I had nothing left to give. The next day, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I texted her to come over. My voice was steady when she walked in. But inside, my heart was racing. "I need to talk to you about something," I said, keeping my eyes on her. Her usual carefree attitude shifted when she saw the look on my face. She knew something was coming. I showed her the bank statement, pointed out the charges. "What's this?" "Marissa?" I asked, my voice low. Her eyes darted around, her fingers playing with the hem of her sleeve. She opened her mouth, but no words came out for a moment. Finally, she spoke. "It's just, I was trying to help. I didn't think you'd mind, but you didn't ask," I said, the disappointment clear in my voice. "You didn't even tell me. I'm sorry. Adeline, I didn't mean to cross any lines," she said, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught. My stomach turned. "How could I have been so blind? I trusted you," I whispered, the words feeling heavy in the air between us. "I really did." She looked guilty, but not enough. It wasn't enough to undo what she'd done. The damage was done. "You need to leave. Marissa," I said, my voice firm, the words harder than I thought they'd be. "I can't have this around me anymore." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just nodded and walked out. And just like that, I lost a friend, and maybe, somewhere deep inside, I knew it was never just about the money. It was about what this moment represented, the breaking point, the evening after Graham's diagnosis. I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't process it. I should have been comforting him, but instead, I was barely holding it together. He kept reassuring me, his voice steady despite the shaking hands, telling me we'd face this together. But even in his attempt to comfort me, I could see the truth in his eyes. He knew, and I knew, that things were going to change, and not just for us, but for everything. A few days passed, and I could feel the weight of the days dragging me down. Graham had been resting more. His pain was manageable, but I could tell it was starting to get to him. It was hard to watch someone so strong, someone who had always been the one to fix things, to take care of me, begin to crumble. I didn't know how to help him now. One morning, when I came home from work, I found Graham sitting at the kitchen table. There were papers spread out in front of him, legal documents, and something about the way he was staring at them, his hand rubbing his temple like he had a headache, told me something important was about to happen. "I've done something," he said quietly, his voice softer than I was used to hearing. "I've made sure you're taken care of, no matter what happens." I couldn't focus on what he said next because all I could see were those papers. He slid them toward me, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the words trust, beneficiary, and life insurance. "I've set it all up, the life insurance, the house, everything. I made sure it's all in your name," Graham continued, his voice cracking. "I didn't want you to have to fight for this. I know what's coming, and I won't let them take it from you. Not my family, not anyone." I was still trying to process what he said, but I felt this weight in my chest lift just a little. For the first time in days, I felt a small shred of relief. He'd thought of everything. He'd thought of me. "I don't want to burden you with this," he added, his voice faltering. "But I can't leave you in the dark." I reached across the table, taking his hand. He was right. I didn't want to deal with these details right now, but I was grateful. "So damn grateful. You've already done more than enough," I said quietly, squeezing his hand. "Thank you." His smile, despite everything, was the same one I'd always known. Graham had always been prepared, and now I was going to have to be, too. Because the fight ahead wasn't just for him. It was for me, too. And I wasn't about to let anyone take what was mine. The funeral was quieter than I expected. Maybe it was the way the sun hung low in the sky, or the steady breeze that kept brushing through the trees, but something about the day felt off. Even the people who showed up, Graham's co-workers from the firehouse, his old friends from the station, seemed to hold their breath when they passed me. They whispered and looked at me with sympathetic eyes, but I wasn't sure if they were mourning Graham or the fact that no one else had bothered to show up. The chairs in the front row sat empty. 3 of them. Where my parents should have been, where Marissa should have been. I hadn't expected them to be there, not really, but I'd hoped, deep down, that maybe, just maybe, they'd put aside their pride for once and show up for me, for Graham. But they didn't, and the weight of that absence settled over me with a heaviness I couldn't shake. I kept trying to focus on the people who were here who cared, but my eyes kept darting back to the empty chairs. The ceremony felt long. The chaplain spoke about bravery, about the sacrifices made by firefighters, but all I could think about was how my own family hadn't bothered to show up, and how Marissa, someone I thought I could trust, had been the one to steal from us. Adeline, one of the firefighters, Captain Reed, said quietly as he walked past, giving me a hug. "We're all here for you. You know, whatever you need." I nodded, but I couldn't say anything. I could feel the tears pushing at the back of my eyes, but I held them in. I couldn't let them fall. Not here, not now. After the service, people began to trickle out. One by one, they came up to me, offering their condolences. "If you need anything, just let us know," they said. And I nodded again, repeating the same tired lines. But it wasn't their support I was looking for. I wasn't looking for sympathy from people who barely knew me. I was looking for the people who should have been here, the people who claimed to love me, the people who should have been sitting beside me. When the last person left, I sat down in the front row, feeling the emptiness of the chairs around me. It was over, and now it was time to face them, time to confront my parents, time to face Marissa. This was my fight now, and I wasn't going to lose. When my parents showed up at the door, I knew this moment had been coming, but nothing could have prepared me for how they would act. They didn't come to the funeral, but here they were, acting like everything was fine, bringing food and pretending they cared. I opened the door to my father holding a casserole dish, my mother standing beside him with her hands clasped tightly, looking at me with that tight-lipped expression she always wore when she was about to say something uncomfortable. "Adeline," my father said, almost too smoothly, "we've been thinking. You need to let go of this house. It's too much for you now." My heart dropped. "You didn't even come to the funeral. You didn't even bother to show up when I needed you the most. And now you want to talk about selling the house." My mother stepped forward, trying to soften the blow. "Darling, you're going through so much. It's better if you move on, for your own peace of mind." "Peace of mind," I repeated, my voice rising, the anger bubbling up. "You've never cared about my peace of mind. You care about control. This house is mine, just like everything else that Graham left for me." "I'm not selling." My father's face hardened. "This is about your future. Adeline, you can't just stay stuck in the past." I shook my head. "I don't need your advice anymore. I don't need you telling me what's best for me. This was never about me. This was always about you." I could feel the tension thickening in the room, but I wasn't going to back down this time, not when they had already shown me their true faces. This wasn't concern for my well-being. It was about their image, their status, their control. Without thinking, I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "I'm done. Please, leave." There was a long silence as they exchanged a look, then turned and left without another word. The click of the door behind them echoed through the house, and for the first time, it felt like a weight had been lifted. I wasn't just standing my ground, I was reclaiming it. I wasn't afraid anymore. This was mine. I had earned it, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. It's funny how life can change in the blink of an eye. One minute, you're sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a pile of paperwork, feeling like you're drowning in everything you need to figure out. The next, you're holding the weight of someone else's final words, words that change everything. That night, I went through the file again. I couldn't stop. The documents Graham had left behind were all there, his life insurance papers, medical bills, and the trust. But it was the letter that hit me hardest. I couldn't bring myself to open it the first time I found it. But tonight, I was ready. I sat down at the kitchen table, the dim light from the lamp casting long shadows across the room. My fingers trembled slightly as I unfolded the letter. It was in Graham's handwriting, sharp and deliberate, just like everything he did. Adeline, the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I've already gone. Please don't feel sorry for me. I fought as hard as I could, but I couldn't win this one. I paused, taking a breath, trying to steady myself before reading on. You've always been the strong one, and I know you'll be okay. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this, from what's coming, but I made sure you'd be taken care of. No one can take what's yours, not your parents, not Marissa, no one. My heart pounded in my chest. It was like he had seen it all coming, the manipulation, the lies. He knew. I wasn't crazy for feeling like something was off. Graham had seen through it all, and he had protected me. I've set up a trust for you. Adeline, it's yours fully and completely. No one can access it for 5 years. Not until you're ready. I blinked, my throat tight. 5 years. He'd made sure I was safe, even after he was gone. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. He had prepared me for this. And now, it was my turn. I sat back, the letter still in my hands, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd carried before. This was my chance, my fight, and I wasn't going to lose it. It's strange how quiet everything feels now. The house is still, but it's a good kind of stillness. Not the kind that suffocates you, but the kind that lets you breathe again. After everything with my parents and Marissa, I wasn't sure I could feel at peace. But now, I think I do. The next few months passed in a blur. I kept busy, working part-time again and starting to rebuild my life, one small step at a time. Sometimes, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and think about how far I'd come, about the things I had lost and the things I had gained. I wasn't the same person I was before Graham's diagnosis. I had become stronger, more certain of what mattered and what didn't. I still remember the days when the emptiness felt overwhelming, when I thought I might crumble under the weight of it all. But the house, though still and quiet, never felt cold. It felt like a space I had earned, like a part of me that was finally mine. I decorated the walls with pictures of Graham and me, nothing extravagant, but enough to remind me of the love we shared. That love was still here. Even in his absence, Jason still comes around every now and then. He's more like family to me now than my own parents ever were. And I've stopped fighting it. I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. My strength comes from within, and the people who really care about me are here. They're the ones who've shown up when it counted, the ones who stayed. Sometimes, I'll find myself in the quiet, thinking of Graham. I'll go to the backyard and sit where he used to sit, where we'd talk about the future, and while I miss him more than words can express, there's a peace in knowing that I'm going to be okay. There's no grand epiphany, no dramatic final confrontation. Sometimes it's just about doing the next right thing, even if it's small. The house is quiet again, and maybe that's the way it was always meant to be. Just me, with the memories of Graham, and the peace that comes from knowing I'm not alone anymore. I still have so much ahead of me, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of it.